For those that don't know me, I come from a corporate marketing background. Um, Quite a bit of experience getting products into Africa, mainly in the B2B space. And that's what fueled my passion for marketing and the decision to dig deeper. Look at the more technical things that are often overlooked. And that's what got me into starting my own small agency, which is built to help small businesses, because that is a big challenge at the moment. Is small businesses don't know where to go when it comes to marketing, and especially digital. And a lot of what's out there is currently not really suited towards small businesses with pricing and how complicated it is. So one of the foundations is enablement and allowing clients and people to be able to understand what they're doing, and then also to be able to do a certain element of the stuff themselves. Because the reality is, the more business owners know, the better. So they can't get taken advantage of and stuff like that. So just a very brief overview and summary of myself. I just want to start this discussion with a bit of context as to where we are, and reference it back to the story we all know of Noah and his ark. So I'm not going to go through the whole story. I just want to focus primarily on the end part, because that's where I feel this conversation is going. So he was on the water for 150 days, which is quite a while. Then the ark came to rest on the 17th day of the 7th month. Now, that's not where it ended. It took another 40 days after the ark came to rest before the waters started to diminish. Then, once the waters started to diminish, then he waited another 40 days before he sent out a raven to make sure the area and surrounding is actually okay to be able to get off. The raven came back and it was actually not. So you can imagine the disappointment after another 40 days. Actually, it's not ready. Then he waited another 7 days and sent out a dove, and the dove came back with new growth. So I want that to be the foundation of where we are right now, where we have a lot of time to think, but what we need to be mindful of is when our arcs stop. We can't jump off and run. We need to make sure that the environment we're stepping into is ready, that we know what we're getting into, and that it's not going to be the normal it was before we were in the situation we are in. And what this allows us to do is to think and to reposition our businesses to be able to be different moving forward. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and this is going to form the foundation of the discussion. And it is based on 5 key areas, mainly on 2 pillars and 1 foundation. I'll get into the detail now, but it's important that as much as possible you keep remembering there's a single foundation and 2 main pillars. Everything from there then becomes easy. What we are faced with currently in the digital space is there is just so much. There are so many options. Within options, there are even more options. And that's where a lot of business owners they don't actually do anything because they have no clue what to do or where to go. So I'm going to start off with the 2 pillars, and that is search and social. Some of you might see things differently. But you'll see as I move along how different elements all come into play in different areas. But for business owners to be able to easily understand the current digital marketing landscape, it's easier if you can just separate it into two main categories of search and social. Now, those are the two pillars that I was talking about. We're not going to get to the foundation now. That's going to be the very last thing we get to, because where we're going is we're starting with the pillars, then moving towards the end point, and then I'm going to show you how most business owners think, where they start with the end point and reverse back, and how when we can flip that around, you'll immediately see how it's going to change your complete perception on marketing and all of that. So then within the two pillars, start getting slightly more complicated. Within search, it's a very often misunderstood area. That within search you have earned search and paid search. Two very, very different areas of search that are often not seen or understood correctly. And with time, search engines have made ads smaller and smaller. So if you don't know what you're looking for, you might not even know the difference between an ad and a normal search listing. So within the social pillar, there are three main categories. And you'll see how they're broken up down the line. But you mainly have social media as we know it, the actual channels. You have live chat, and then video as core secondary pillars to the main ones. Now, within those, this is where it gets complicated for a lot of people. And this is what I'm trying to help everyone with today. This is where people start saying, I don't know what to do. So within your earned search, it's all your main search engines, which is Google, Microsoft, Bing. There are quite a few other ones. So that's all relates to earned search. Paid search, the same. We all know Google ads, then there's Bing ads, there's a whole bunch of search-related ads you can do as well. Within social media, you have a free component and a paid component. And this is going to come in later when I give you some scenarios, which will help different businesses with different budgets, what they can, what they can't do, and ultimately what they can strive for. So within social media, once again, there are many, many different social media channels. But the main ones currently in use, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube. What's incredibly, incredibly important when it comes to social media is to talk to the audience. Every social channel has a different audience with a different thinking cap on. That's a whole discussion on its own. So I don't want to get into the ins and outs of individual social media channels. At this stage, I just want to outline everything so everyone knows what's available. And when we get to the foundation, you'll see how it all becomes relevant. So then within live chat, you have WhatsApp, social media, your direct messaging within those platforms, and then your website. And this is often a very, very overlooked element within a lot of small businesses. They quite often rely on the more traditional inquiries and contact forms online, where WhatsApp chat integration into websites, it's free and it's a simple installing of a plugin if you're using something like WordPress. And what that does is it gives business owners a direct link to anyone who has any questions without having then look at competitors or anyone else. They can get immediate feedback. And social media, same thing. We've all used social media, live chat, where we've seen an advert, seen a post, send someone an inbox, you get a response. The same applies within business. And then the live chat is adding an element to contact forms and your more traditional ways of contacting people with live chat. Once again, I think this third step is possibly a detailed discussion on its own because of how each channel and platform needs to be used differently. And that's something we could possibly look at. Then within video, you also have search and paid. A lot of you don't know that search engines, they can't read video and watch video. A lot of what you see within video rankings and search is how it's optimized when setting it up with descriptions, with tags, with titles. And that's within video a very overlooked element of smaller businesses, just purely because they don't know that that's a function within video of search. Paid, once again, all comes down to budgets and what you have available. So when we look at how this all ties together, there is a single point of contact, and that is the website. When we go through the scenarios, you'll see that this changes slightly. But in essence, what you want to be doing, no matter the pillar you're focusing on, you always want to drive people back to your website. And I get asked quite often, why do you want to keep pushing everything back to the website? And the quick and easy answer is there's a lot more content and value people can find on your website than searching online. If someone has a specific query or they see something on a social channel, they click on that, they get to your website. From there, if the website is correctly optimized and has the correct foundation in place, they could get every single answer they need from a single point. From there, if you then have direct communication channels in place, like WhatsApp chat, website live chat, you have the potential of getting conversions instantly. As soon as people see an ad, they look at your website, they look at your range or portfolio, and they inquire, and you've got them. As soon as you allow any time difference between interest and business owners or businesses getting back to people, you open up the door for these people who have questions to find other answers online. And that's where there's potential to lose quite a bit to competitors, even overseas companies. So within the third column, there's obviously a lot more in play. And this, okay, so we'll get to what's in play later. So this is now where we get to the crux of everything. And this is the foundation. And the foundation of every single thing a business does, I would go so far as to say, not even marketing related. It's sales, it's project management, it's administration, it relates to every aspect of business. The single most important thing is content. And I think a very practical example of this is meetings, face-to-face meetings, which the single most important thing, if it was content, is most often sidetracked by a lot of other discussions, which makes meetings generally not very productive. And this is how the digital movement we're in now with Zoom has changed that, because every meeting has a set content goal. Once that content goal has been passed over, the meeting's done. The meetings are shorter, they're more productive, and people walk away knowing exactly what they need to do. If we take this into the digital marketing space and we start reversing it, then a lot of you might start relating to what I'm busy saying, where you have a website or a landing page or some platform. And I know a lot of businesses don't, and we will still get there. But what they do is a lot of business owners say, okay, I have this product and this service on my website. I'm going to take that service and I'm going to run a Facebook campaign and then pop up some Google ads. In reverse to what it should be. Now, if we take that same situation and we reverse it, and a business owner starts thinking, what is the content that I want to give to my target audience? Then you take that element of content and you break it up into two main elements, which is your copy and your design. And this is everything you do relates to copy, design, either one or the other, or a combination of them. Now, if we take that exact same situation of a product or a single product or service on the website that a business owner wants to promote, if you're focusing on the content, you are forced to think, what am I trying to tell my target audience? Once you've figured out what you actually want to tell them, then you've got to think, how am I going to tell that to them through copy? Am I going to just copy paste what's on my website, or am I going to change the copy to the specific audience I'm talking to? Then you need to make sure that within that content you're trying to bring across, you have a design that's current, speaks to your target audience, and complements your message. Within content, if one of the two supporting roles don't work, you are not going to have the desired outcome. So if we take that same example and we focus on content, we get the copy, we get the design. Then we say we are now going to focus on the search pillar. We're going to focus on paid, and we're going to do Google Ads. Within Google Ads, what that forces you to do is you have your content. Now you have your copy supporting your main theme, which you can create multiple variants of ads. And those ads then all have the same content goal, but they can all be variants, and they'll all complement each other because they're focusing on the same content goal. Within that, there's also a display element where you can show the ads via pictures and images, and there's lots of things you can do within that. Then what you need to do is make sure that the design mimics the copy of the text ads and ultimately supports the content. Now, if you follow that back, your Google Ads then push your people back to the website. And then once people have read or seen your specific content goal, they go to the website, they already know what they can see, what they're expecting. And then from there, once you have that flow in place, then you see there's a whole new world that opens up. But why I have only included those additional elements at the end is because none of those additional elements can work if you do not have a content strategy in place that has a design and copy element that relates to your target audience and what you're trying to achieve. That doesn't work if you don't know how to use earned and paid search, social media, live chat, video. And that goes into the main channels which can be used. And once that is working, and you've got those foundations in place, and you've got the resources to manage those foundations, Then you can start looking at things like PR, traditional advertising, putting advertorials into media publications, because then you start going large scale. And the last thing you want to do is be in a situation of desperation and say, I'm going to launch a major mainstream campaign, and you actually get the interest, but you don't have the resources or the platforms in place to support the inquiries. So if we take an example of, let's take an advertorial. So you have a specific piece of content you want to put out, an announcement, a product launch, anything like that. And you say you want to put it onto a news publication, great. From there, people are going to search you and the topic. Now, if we go back and we say, if you have an advertorial that you've published on a specific topic, talking about yourself, can people find both of those elements on Google search? Yes or no? If they can't find both, you're losing out. The same within Google Ads. If your Google search isn't giving you the visibility you need, you can use Google Ads as a cover-up. But you need to make sure that's in place so that you aren't losing out on traffic. Within your advertorials, then, a lot of people will go and look at your social channels. So do you have recent publications or related services, posts, products that are talking about what you're talking about within advertorials? Because when people go to social, they don't look at the first post, they actually scroll and have a look at the culture, the posts, the history. So you need to make sure that whatever you're talking about is present on Facebook or on the Facebook social media platforms. Then you need to make sure that within the live chat environment, if someone does inquire on the website, you have the people in place. And you don't need to use all three, you can pick one. But you need to make sure that the person or people or department manning that knows that this campaign has run. And that is a very, very popular marketing / operational break that happens in business, where there are departments that manage certain elements of the business and campaigns that aren't aware that certain initiatives or campaigns or advertising launches have happened, and then inquiries come in and there's a delay because they don't know what the main content theme is to be able to give them the answers. Then within that advertorials, as the same example, people could go, if you have a YouTube channel, go there and look for visual content relating to what you've just spoken about in a text article. So you can start seeing how anything you run as an additional peripheral marketing activity all relates back down to the core channels, going back to the supporting pillars, to the main two pillars, but they all come down to the single most important thing, which is content. And it doesn't matter what supporting marketing activity or platform you use or channel, everyone has to be linked to a specific content goal. And the worst thing you can do is to take content and see it as just an element to tick box. And what I mean by that is taking a service page off your website and posting it for the sake of, I need to be on social media. Because what you're doing is, yes, you're busy posting information about your website and your company, but you're not busy contextualizing it. What you need to remember is there are thousands of businesses doing this, and they're all jumping onto the same bandwagon. So now, more than ever, the content, messaging, and design has to be unique. It has to speak to the audience, and it needs to be grabbing. And I think one of the good examples of this is Instagram, which is a highly visual platform. If your business is in anything to do with visuals, retail is a very popular example. You need to make sure that the images you're putting out are the same quality, if not better, than any of your competitors. You need to make sure that the hashtags and the targeting you're using is actually correct and what people are busy searching for. So that in a nutshell is a very broad overview of the digital marketing landscape. So, like I said in the beginning, it is a lot more complex than this. But this this will give business owners a very good idea of how they need to start thinking, even if they themselves aren't going to do any of the work, but they need to outsource it. They need to know, when I outsource a social media campaign, I need to know what my message is and my content that I want to put out to people. Because any agency, any freelancer, any person family friend that is helping you, they're going to ask you, what is the content, what is the goal, what is the objective? So instead of saying, I need to promote this product, which is all good and well, business owners are the ones with the knowledge. They know where that product was birthed from, why they created it. So they're the only ones that can really portray what they want to achieve. Creative people have an amazing ability to take a concept and an idea and turn it into something great. But the more they know, the better they can make it. So I would urge everyone to stop thinking in terms of channels and start thinking in terms of content. What that's going to force you to do is start thinking, how are you going to reach people? And then what that's going to do is it's going to force you to say, hang on, this channel might not actually be the correct channel for what I'm trying to bring across. So you will then not only just be tick boxing channels because everyone else is doing it, you're going to be smart about it. For instance, you don't need to necessarily have a Facebook campaign. A LinkedIn campaign might have a lot more, much better results, because you might be targeting B2Bs, professionals, a certain level of management or qualification. It gives you a lot of option where Facebook might not necessarily do that. So that's why I was saying within that third column, there's a whole separate discussion on how to use it. But still, this is relevant because the content, if you're thinking in terms of content, you are automatically going to start thinking, is this content applicable to this channel, yes or no? And then once you have the content, you have the channel, you're going to start thinking, do I have enough information on my website to support what I'm putting out on any of these channels? If not, then you need to take your website and go back to step one and look at content. And within content, is my website supporting my content goals? And once you get the balance between content goals and website content, then you start seeing that your channels start becoming more effective because you have more to talk about and more to cross-reference and link together. Once you have all of that in place, you can start adding peripheral services like email marketing, SMSs, direct, telemarketing, all of those other services that support your main channels, which are going to be the foundation of digital. So what I want to do now is just give you some examples of what you can do with certain budgets considering the current digital landscape, because that's a very big question and concern at the moment. Is obviously budgets. A lot of companies don't have any because their revenue channels have completely disappeared. But that doesn't mean it all has to stop. So if we look at a company that has zero budget, this screen is busy showing you that there is still a lot of option. So if you have no budget, you have a website in place or landing page or something basic, you can still take the content strategy approach. You might not have the design element to be able to pay a graphic designer or someone that can do animation or infographics, but you can still create content. All the knowledge is in your head, and for this time, if you don't necessarily have the full creative juices flowing that you might have paid someone else to do, you are still able to do something. Now, within the search landscape, there is an option of your earned Google search. That is a longer term goal. So you want to be focused. A next level in digital strategy is short-term, long-term goals. That's not going to get into that now either, but each channel has a short-term and long-term goal, and some of them have both. Your Google search is a long-term strategy, but that doesn't stop you from still creating content for search, adding to your website, thought leadership, articles, insights. There's a lot you can do without any budget there. Within social media, it's free. There is a paid element to it, but if you have no budget, you don't do the paid part. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all free. And all of it you can do from a cell phone. It's, once again, if you don't have budget to do it, make very sure that the content you're putting out, if someone isn't doing it for you, is clever, is unique, and it's not just a copy-pasted product or service from your website. But you can still do that. Live chat, WhatsApp chat on your website is free. Install that, implement it, get friends, family, people to help you do that. It's free. It adds a direct element straight away. Social media live chat, direct messages, it's free. Within the search component of video, it's free. If you have a phone, you can take a video. You have an idea of how fast YouTube works. The internet can teach you everything. So within that, you can get the basics of how to show up in YouTube search. So this is everything that's possible with a zero budget. And you can see it's a lot. So you don't want to be focusing purely on Facebook because that's all you know. When you can see there is a lot of option available on a zero budget. If we look at an example of a 5,000 Rand budget, what that's doing is it's adding in limited paid options, which further increases your reach. But then what it does is it also adds in some supporting elements, given that the channel strategy is working. So within social media, you've got paid, and paid social media can actually get you quite far on quite small budgets. Something like Google Ads in a moderately competitive market is still going to cost significantly more than any form of social media paid advertising. And then within video, you have the option as well. But these are just very surface level examples. Obviously, each business within a specific industry will all have a completely different strategy. You're not going to blanket strategy this across every business and every industry. It just gives you an option of what is available. So then if we look at a 10,000 budget, then you're adding a couple more main supporting peripheral platforms. But once you start getting to budgets like this, what you are now able to do is become a lot more effective within the paid environment. So now you can start adding a lot more budget. You can spend more on design. You can bring in copywriters. There's an element of PR you can do. So as budgets increase, there are additional channels to use. But what I would be caution everyone of is the bigger the budget, don't go adding on as many peripheral activities as you possibly can. Make sure that even if you have a bigger budget, you have the core channels in place and that they are working and that they are generating leads. If you don't have those core channels generating leads, anything you add on the outside is not necessarily going to have a direct impact on that. So optimizing budgets for channels really, really is important the bigger the budget gets. And then, if we were to look at for instance, a 20,000 budget, that's where you can bring in a lot of placed media, advertorials. Within PR, you can start paying for certain platforms. Within events and expos, then you're not just attending, you're actually exhibiting. You can bring in supporting elements like telemarketing. And don't underestimate the power of telemarketing. Once again, coming back to content. The biggest reason why telemarketing doesn't work is because a lot of people, when they get called, there's no real punchy content strategy behind it. It's we do this, we sell this. There's no creativeness behind it. And when that's in place, you have everything else supporting you, and you have a solid, comprehensive strategy in place. It can be a very effective channel. So those were the three, or the couple of examples I wanted to give. And then what I also just want to briefly chat about is how industry has changed within the digital landscape. So the situation we're faced with at the moment has forced business owners across every industry to rethink how they market themselves, and more importantly, how are they going to generate revenue. If we look at the services and consulting based company as an example, their bread and butter come from face-to-face interaction, be it meetings, strat sessions, actually being on site, implementing, fixing or servicing something. A big portion of that doesn't have to be face-to-face. It can be done digitally. And you're finding a lot of companies within services and consulting that have switched revenue models into digital consulting. I think one of the areas where it's most prevalent is within exercising, personal training, where they've monetized their digital services, where it normally would have been a face-to-face interaction, it's now digital. So that's one example. Retail, a lot of retailers that weren't online are now suddenly having to go online. And it might have been a fear in the beginning of it's too complicated, we don't know how to handle it, to now they're doing it and they're realizing the true value of being able to sell online anytime, even during closure, you can still sell. Another big shift in industry is in distribution. And why I say that is distribution is a pretty traditional business model that has been set in place over many, many decades. But how distribution is changing is there's a certain tolerance within the supply chain for distributors to now be able to sell direct to the end user. I myself have experienced that and have seen incredible results. But what's happening is the distribution chain has been severely impacted with this, with more than likely somewhere along the line the chain breaking due to it not being an essential service or just not being able to function or closing down. So what distributors are busy doing is converting a traditional distribution business into an online retail business. They have the products. It's not in the shop, but they're in warehouses. They have the ability, manpower, systems in place to be able to sell those products. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. It's just an example of how businesses need to start thinking differently and trying to break traditional molds, because the reality is when we get out of this, everything is going to be different. Businesses that do go back to what they were, they'll more than likely continue for a while. But what's going to happen is a lot of the businesses within a certain industry that have innovated, that have changed, they're going to force change within their target audience. And everyone is becoming more tech savvy, more comfortable with digital engagement. And if you go back to the model that you worked off without opening up new opportunities, a lot of the competitors are just going to keep going and going and going and growing. And with time, if you don't change, your business is going to start getting left behind. Now, I'm not saying go crazy and go extreme. I'm trying to bring the message across that we all need to be very open-minded of any possibility right now. And I think the distribution industry is a good example, because that industry is very, very set in their way. But I have seen how distribution companies that go retail and e-commerce have seen incredible results. And any distribution company that doesn't is more than likely post-lockdown going to feel the implications, because those that are still selling online, will continue to do so within the consulting space as well. There's no need to, if you are able to monetize a certain level of consulting, to go back to face-to-face traveling for 2 hours. There's no need. Margins could be increased, your expenses are being cut down by travel and all these other things. So there's a very, very good opportunity for us all. But remember, the opportunity comes within the content. You don't have an opportunity if you say, everyone's on Facebook, I need to be on Facebook. Because then what you're doing is you are following and you're not trying to stand out and be different. So think content. From there, how am I going to use it? What channels am I going to use it for? And is my website equipped to handle what I'm trying to bring across? Okay, so that was an overview of the current digital landscape and all the options available, and how to focus on getting something done cleverly. Like I said, there's a lot more to it, but it's not overwhelming if you break it down and you start from the very beginning. Everyone can do it.